I'm going to be sharing some stuff with you guys this morning. I'm going to be reading from the book of Luke. This will be Luke chapter 15, verse 11. It's a lot of scripture, so I'm not going to have you stand for the reading of the scripture. But I've got this is one of the most amazing stories that we get to hear. This is one of the most amazing stories that Jesus tells his disciples and those who are listening. And some of you guys, you've probably heard this one before. I have no doubt that you've heard of the parable of the prodigal son. All right? You guys have had to have heard that one at least once. So I'm gonna share with you, here we are from the reading of the word. Then he said, "A certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the portions of goods that falls to me.' So he divided to them his livelihood." Now I want you guys, you realize what just happened? I don't think you guys realize just what happened. Pastor Jackson, I'm going to borrow you for a minute. All right, you realize what just happened. I'm going to be the son, all right? Can you be my dad for a minute? Is it okay, Josh? Can you be my dad for a minute? All right, it's cool. You can stay seated. You don't even have to stand for this part. It's the easy. All right, you ready? I'm going to show you guys exactly what happened. Dad! I can't wait for you to die. I can't wait. You remember? You showed me the family business. You showed me the farm, the cows, the pigs, the sheep. And remember that their favorite spot by the tree? You showed me that. And you told me and my older brother that half of it will be mine when you die. I can't wait for you to die. I want my half now. I need it. I need it now. I was talking with my buddies. They were telling me all the cool stuff you can do in the city, and I need my cut now. I need you to die. Come on. A lot of us, we read this and we run right past that. How many fathers we got in the house today? Where you at? Where my dad's at? Moms, where you at? Because you guys are even better. We couldn't do it without you. I got my little girl, Lexi. She's 11 months old. And I know now, as a father, that there are times at 2 a.m. at night, you're holding your kid and she is crying her head off and you got to go to work in 3 hours. And all you want to do is throw the kid somewhere else and go to sleep. But there's those moments where you're sitting there and the kid has no idea. Each and every one of us, there's a moment in our life where we had no idea what our parent or guardian or whoever was doing for us in that moment when we were crying. And I have to think in that moment when that son came up to his dad, how hurtful that had to have been for his son to wish death upon him. All those moments where that dad was raising his boys, never once did he consider that they would wish his death just for his stuff. And it continues to say, "And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living." So we take a step back to the father for a minute. Did the father get mad? Did he lash out? Did he say how dumb his boy was? He had an attitude of grace, an attitude of love. He didn't agree with the choice that his son was making, but he was true to the promise that he made to his son and gave half of his portion to his son. And he didn't hold spite or anger or unforgiveness. And you think about it, it said it took a couple of days to gather all those possessions. So that means that father is living in that house with this son with the knowledge that his son would rather he be dead so he can have half of his stuff, and he's having to go through and say, okay, you get this half. And his son's probably walking through the house going, man, this is just going to be great. And he's like, man, you just wait and see what I'm going to do with my half. How hard that had to be. That had to be a hard couple of days. And it says the son left. He went to a distant land. Now, in some translations, it says we don't even know the name of the land. That means he didn't go to the next town or the next town or the next town. He went so far to where the people at home, the people from the house, where the father and the brothers didn't know where he was. And it says he wasted his money on prodigal living. So now I'm going to be very honest and raw with you. Okay? And while you're listening to this message, I need your help. This is the help that I need, and it's very easy. You can do it sitting where you're at. You need to be honest with God. That is the thing that I need you to help with. This is between you and God. Today, you guys have a divine appointment with God here at this altar, and the next couple of minutes are going to set the tone for what you're going to ask for here. Some of you are going through the fire. You're going through the trials. You feel like your back's against the wall. You're walking each day with a yoke on your shoulders. You're about to have an opportunity to have that yoke released, but you have to be honest with God. The words that I say, you need to consider them in your heart, how they apply to your life and how they apply to our Father. And then you're going to make a choice. Prodigal living, in those days you could buy women. You could buy men. You could still buy alcohol. You could still buy drugs. You could still gamble. You could do all of that. And he wasted his living on that life, on the worldly life outside of the house. He wasted and squandered half of everything his father had worked for, everything his father had gifted him. Half. He didn't do anything to earn any of that. He was just born. All that hard work was wasted. He wasted it. Buying women, buying prostitutes, going out and gambling for the thrill and the joy and the cheer from his friends. We live in a day where we can get anything we want at the tip of our fingertips. We can order it. We can get it anytime you want. There might not be prostitute markets in the city, but there's over 400 million pornographic sites accessible on this device. In 2 seconds, I could pull one up. I'm going to hit you hard this morning. It's been about 3 years since I preached in the house. And if you go to Carlstead, Crookston, Hallock, and some of the other places, they call me the shotgun pastor because I give them both barrels. And I'm here to give you both barrels this morning. You're not fooling God. You're not fooling me. You're not fooling people next to you. You're not fooling the world. There are people in this house that are looking actively at pornography every single day of their life. And you've come to this altar before and you've prayed for freedom. You've prayed for that addiction to be released from you, and it hasn't happened. You will have an opportunity for that yoke to be broken off of you. But the next step's going to be yours. The choice is going to be yours, what you're going to do. There's some of you here that you just can't stop picking up that bottle. You can't stop hitting that gambling button. You just can't stop. There's freedom at the altar. There's freedom in the house. This son is the story of how you can gain that freedom back. So it says that he wasted all of his possessions of prodigal living, going into verse 14. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in the land, and he began to be in want. And then he went and joined himself to a citizen of the country. He squandered all of his living on worldly things. He found himself locked by vices, held by chains of the world, to the point to where he could not take care of himself anymore. He couldn't feed himself. He couldn't clothe himself. He couldn't shelter himself. And his back was against the corner, against the wall. And he made a choice. Man, what do I have left? Wasted all Dad's money. I'm getting weak. I'm getting weak. I have my freedom. I have my freedom to come and go. He bartered his freedom with a citizen of the land. He enslaved himself to another person just for the hope that he might have something better than he had standing on his own 2 feet. He tried to put his faith in another person, not in the Father, not in the house, but in another person. And it says, then he went and joined himself to a citizen of the country, and he sent him into his fields to feed the swine. Swine or pigs? Do we have any pig farmers here? Are there any pig farmers? No? Okay, that's 3. All right. Anyone know what a pig is? Someone's got to know what a pig is, right? What's a pig? You seen a pig? I want to get you involved somehow. Someone's got to know what a pig is. And when we think of pigs in our modern mind, we think of Piglet from Winnie the Pooh, or Babe from the movie. These cute little pigs. Oh, they're so cute. I just want to touch one. But I'm going to tell you, pigs are not Piglet. They're not Babe. They are a gross, disgusting, vile animal. They're not nice. They're not cuddly. And they're kept in one of the most disgusting places. They're kept in the pig pen. And that pen is filled not just with mud, my friends. That's the bathroom, too. That's where it's all going. It is not a fun place. And it says he went gladly and having filled his stomach with pods that the swine ate, that he was thinking that he would gladly eat of the pods, of the food that the swine was given. He's standing there, barefoot, in the muck, in the pig pen, trapped, enslaved, unable to move on his own accord, unable to leave on his own accord. And he's looking at what the pigs are eating, going, that is the best thing in the world. This kid who came from over here, from the Father's house, who lived in nobility, who had it all, is now in the worst possible place that you could be. And I want you to understand what he's looking at. You see, because in those times, they didn't have pig feed. They didn't have feed. What happened was the food went on the master's table. Then what was left, the servants got. Once the servants were done, the dogs got it. And then once the dogs got it, anything that was left, that went to the pigs. Would you want that? The master already ate it. The servants already had their fill, took what was ever left, and then they gave it to the dogs and scraped all that up off the floor and everything and just gave it to the pigs. And he's staring, looking at this slop, saying, I want that. That's the best thing in my life right now. How sad. But when he came to himself, and another translation says, when he came to his senses. In order for you to come to your senses, you have to be living in a state that's considered insanity. He was living in a state of insanity, standing in the pig pen, barefoot, looking at the pig slop, wanting that. All the while when he had a house and a father who loved him. When he came to himself and he said, how many of my father's servants have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? See, he's coming to his senses and he's starting to consider what his choices, where his choices have led him, where they've brought him. His choices, not the government's, not his daddy's, not his mom's, not someone else's. It's easy to point fingers at someone else and say, they got me here. But he had reached so far into his life and he's made it to a point where he's come to his senses and he realized, I'm the only one responsible. It was my choice. I'm here by my choice. And he's comparing, he remembers how servants were in the Father's house. How great the Father's house was, that his servants weren't treated the way that he is. Where there's people, other servants, people walking by, and no one helped him. It says no one helped him. How many people would walk by that pig pen, seeing him in starvation, filthy, no shoes, and not even offer a hand, saying, hey, brother, you look like you're hurting. Can I help you? No one, not one person, even offered a hand, saying, I'm willing to help. So verse 18, he said, I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and you. This is an acknowledgement, guys. He acknowledges that his father had a set of rules and principles that he lived by, and he sinned against his father, his earthly father. And he acknowledges that he sinned against heaven. That means he knew what his father's teachings were, and he knew heaven's teachings. And he walked against both. He spit in the face of both and went on his own way. He says, I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So, and then it says in verse 20, and he arose and came to his father. And when he was a great distance off, his father saw him and had compassion. So his father is there at the family business, at the house. And at some point throughout his day, he's walking, and he looks up, and he's seeing his son coming down the road. I don't know about you, but I've got some friends and some family. I know they're not following Jesus. I know they're not following Jesus. I know they're out living the life. You know, I've got siblings like that. Some of them are serving God. Some of them, they're pretending they're serving God. And I've got friends that they know outright. They've said to my face that they're done with God, but they're rough. When someone you love leaves the house, when someone you love leaves your circle, you have those moments where you look back, you look at where they were, and you go, you know, one day I think they're going to come back, and I'm going to love them. Lord, you know, just be with them wherever they are in the highways and byways. Just keep them safe. I know there's praying grandmothers and grandfathers and moms and dads. They're praying for someone like that. There might even be someone out in the world praying for you. They're wondering whether or not you're coming to church, whether you're doing okay. So I have to think that father, through all that time when his son was gone, he was looking up that road going, you know, one day my son's coming home. One day my boy's coming home. One day I'm going to hug him again. I'm going to see him again. The servants are saying, you know, he's dead. And he's like, no, you know, I think my son's going to come home one day. He's going to come back to the house. He's going to remember what I taught him. And it says when he was a long way off, when he was still great a way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck. You don't run and embrace someone that you hate. You don't run and embrace someone that you despise and find foul, that you cast judgment on. That's someone you love. That's someone that you've forgiven. Someone that you miss dearly. And it says that you kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. It says that word for word in verse 21 and 19. That means he was walking all that distance, that great distance away, going, rehearsing that in his head. If you've ever been in trouble, man, I've been in trouble with my mama. I'm telling you, I've been in trouble. Who's been in trouble? Come on, you've been in trouble. And you start rehearsing in your head, you know, if I tell it to them this way, I just might not get a whooping. I just might. They might have a little compassion if I say it this way, exactly. They won't know that I wrecked the car. They'll forget. They're not going to go outside and look. If I say it this way, they're not going to be sad over the drywall that me and my brother broke. I got a home now. That I know that was not a good thing. You learn, amen. So he said it the exact same way. He was walking a long distance, not wearing any shoes, and I'll tell you how I know that soon. He wasn't wearing any shoes, and I have to think, because of how far he went, he had to have passed someone on the road. He had to have passed through at least one town. And it doesn't say this, guys. It doesn't say this, but maybe someone came up to him and said, hey, are you okay, man? You should come with me. And he's going, no. I'm going to the Father's house. I'm going to my Father's house. It's the only place I got to go. I got to go to the Father's house. You can't get out of my way. It doesn't say that, but I feel in my heart of hearts that someone had to have seen this junky old boy walking. through town on his way back to the house. But the father said to his servants, "Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it. And let us eat and be merry." So he put the best robe on his son. He put the robe on him. He put clothes on his son. He put comfort and protection and an outward sign of his status on his son. He comforted him with the best robe, the most comfortable robe that you can find. And then it also says that he put a ring on his finger. In those days, nobility wore rings. And any servant, any person of the world that saw that ring and recognized that status, they knew instantly that you carried the authority of the ring. His father put the authority back on his son. Put the identification that says, "This is my son," and he carries with him the authority of the father, with the authority of the house, with the authority that I have, so that any that saw it would have to obey. And it says they put sandals on his feet. This is how I know he was barefoot. You don't have to put sandals on someone who's wearing sandals. They put sandals on his feet to comfort his steps, to protect this vital area of the body. You see, when we walk away from the house, when we walk away from church, when we walk away from our relationship with Jesus Christ, and we come back to our senses, and we say, "Lord, Father, I have sinned. I know you told me not to look at that stuff anymore. I know you told me not to drink that stuff anymore. I know you told me not to touch that stuff anymore. Not to talk that way, not to go that way. Forgive me, Jesus. Forgive me of my sins." When you do that, he puts a robe on you. He calls you a child of God. He says that you are his child, saved and redeemed with all the privileges of the house. Because of grace. Because of his grace. Because of the Lord Jesus that died on the cross. We have the ability, just like the prodigal son, to walk from wherever we're at, no matter how bad we look, no matter how dirty we are, no matter how far we've gone, no matter how far we've fallen, to the house. We can go back to the house and be welcomed. It says, "But the father said to his servants, 'Bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring out the fattened calf and kill it. And let us eat and be merry.'" The greatest song of all, the thing that Jesus loves more, is the song of the redeemed, when lost sinners are set free. When the lost come into the house and say, "I am here and I am free forever and ever and ever. And I just want to serve you, Lord, all the days of my life." It's a time for celebration. And he says, "For this is my son, who was dead and is alive again. He was lost and now is found." And it says they began to be merry. They began to be merry. So they're throwing a party. They're in celebration because this son who was dead is now back. He's welcomed as if he never left. Even though he squandered, he took half of the estate. When you take half an estate, half of a business, half of a livelihood, that has to inconvenience a lot of people. There's probably workers and servants there that are going, "Man, last year's numbers weren't too good because you took half the business. I've been working on this land for 30 years, and you running my business into the ground." But there was just forgiveness, just acceptance. You're back. And so as they're partying, it says his older son was in the field. So his older son was working, doing what he'd been doing. being faithful, coming, staying in the house, showing up every single day, doing his part, doing what he was called to do. The older son never left the calling. He never spat in the face of his dad and said, never spat in the face of his dad and left and took his part. He could have. He saw the younger son do it, so he knew that he could ask the same and the father would do. And it says, as he drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And they said to him, your brother has come home because he has received him safe and sound. Your father has killed the fattened calf. So when it says that he became so angry, so full of hate and rage, that they had thrown this party for the worst son, for the least deserving son. He's angry. He's upset. And it says he wouldn't come in. And it came to a point to where the servants had to get the father, take the father from the grand party, from the huge celebration that's going on, to have him come and talk to his son. And he said to his father, lo, these many years I've been serving you. I never transgressed against your commandment at any time. And yet you never gave me even a young goat that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, you killed the fattened calf for him. And the father said to him, son, you're always with me, and all that I have is yours. It is right that we should make merry and be glad. For your brother was dead and is alive again, was lost and is found. That's the greatest thing about us. We have the privilege as believers, when we say we're a part of the house, we're a part of God's family, all of his kingdom is at our grasp. Life eternal in heaven is our reward. It can be hard. I know it. I was here for 6 years. And as an adjutant, that means you hold doors. You carry Bibles for people. You grab water and sweat rags. And you do things that some people would find very demeaning. That some people wouldn't be able to humble themselves to do. God loves a servant. Every single person that I've ever had the privilege of listening to, that I've ever had the privilege of seeing at the top of the stage, they all started as a servant first. God elevates in servanthood when you say, Lord, I'm just willing to help. I'm just willing to help. If that means I'm at Holy Convocation at 2 a.m. and I'm vacuuming for the next day, then that's what I'm doing. If that means I'm wiping tables just to make sure they're clean for the next thing, then that's what I'm doing. When you go into the spirit of servanthood with a genuine heart saying, you know what, I don't care how high I go, as long as I don't go any lower into the world's world, as long as I'm a servant in the Father's house, and you say genuinely, I'm just here to help. And you take any task, they say, you know what, we need help here. And you say, yes, sir, I'm here to help. You will suddenly find yourself advancing in the kingdom just by being present. Just by being present. So I'm getting ready to close this morning. I've told you guys about this journey of this young man, how far he went. And I'm going to ask you guys, are you living in the pig pen this morning? Have you brought yourself to a place where you're saying, you know what, I'm not in the house. I'm standing in this mess I made because of the lies that I'm telling myself, because of the lies that I'm telling my family, because of the choices that I've made. And there are people who gave me better direction, and I said, no, thank you. You spit in their face, and you made a choice anyway. And then you found yourself in the pig pen. You squandered that opportunity that you had, and you lost it, and find yourself in a place hurting, in a place not sure, what are you going to do next? Sometimes we can find ourselves not exactly in the pig pen. We as Christians, we like to be on the road in between the house sometimes. Can I be honest with you this morning? Am I allowed to be honest? A lot of times we like to be on the road. The house is over here. We can see it, but we can see the pig pen too. And we lie to ourselves saying, it's okay if I have a few. It's okay if I just look once. Well, maybe twice, probably 3 times. The Lord's not going to cast me out for 3, right? And we lie to ourselves. We put on this great face when we see church folk, but we live in the world in the closed door. Each of you, each of us, we are a temple unto God. We are a house unto ourselves with a relationship between you and Jesus Christ, between you and Jesus Christ. And some of you, I remember when I'd go to Mobile, Alabama, and I'd go to Great Graham's house. She had this living room that had the nice furniture, and there was plastic on it. You couldn't sit there. That was the nice room. So as you walked by on the street, you'd go, man, they got some nice stuff in there. But the rest of the house was trash. Closets full with junk. The bedrooms full with junk. Jesus this morning is saying, he's knocking at the door of your heart. And he's saying, can I come in? He's standing at the door of your heart with a mop and a bucket and a team of angels to come in and clean out your junk this morning. And all he's saying is, come forward to the altar. Let me in. Let me in so I can clean up your mess. If you want your mess cleaned up, you want to find yourself clean. You want to find yourself out of the pig pen. The time's come. I've got this guy, he comes to my house. He comes to my house every Monday. He's a great dude. I apologize. You know who you are. He's a great dude. He comes to my house every Monday, and I don't exactly know his name. He comes every single Monday around 9 or 10 o'clock, and he does me and my wife this huge favor, this amazing favor. It's the greatest thing in the world. See, we get to live Tuesday through Sunday any way we want. We take paper plates, we take junk, we take cans, and we throw it out into the trash can. We just take all of our worldly living and we just throw it out into the trash can. And this guy, I don't know his name, comes every Monday, does me the biggest favor, takes my trash away until next Monday. Jesus didn't come to be your trash man. He came to be your livelihood. He came to be in the house with you every single day to help you guide what is trash and what isn't. But he's not the trash man. He's the life man. So if you're tired, you're weary, you're tired of being in the pit, being in the pig pen, of living on the road, you want to be in the Father's house, I'm going to invite you to come forward. Be honest with yourself. If you're dealing with something, that doesn't mean that you're the worst of the worst. It just means you're dealing with something. We're all dealing with something. If you get angry at work, and all of a sudden you start cussing out your coworkers, that's not God. That's world. That's trash. It's time to pray for that. If you this mean grouch and crook at home, that's not God. You want to live in the house. You need to feed the house. Jesus is here and he's saying, I want to know you. I want to enter into your heart. I want to take anxiety, depression, worry, those sleepless nights. I want to take all that away and make you free. Who the Son sets free is free indeed.